Okay, folks, Max here running the chat. Time for our update with MJ and Andrew. Let me know if you can hear us clearly. Maybe you guys should talk.
Yes, can you hear us?
Sound good, vision good. All right, without further ado, here we go.
Hey, good afternoon, or good evening, or late good morning, all. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Max to turn off the comments, as we usually do for these announcements, at least for a few minutes, so Andrew and I can talk to you folks, and then feel free to comment away and question away. So, let's start with the obvious. The too long, didn't read, or don't want to listen version is we have to announce that we are going to delay the opening of Beta 1 for a short period of time. Now, why are we doing this? So before I talk, I want to let you guys know that if you head on over to our friends at MOP, or MMORPG, you will find
Mop.
you will find tomes of questions and answers from both Andrew and myself about why we are doing what we're doing, what exactly it is we're doing, and what the results of doing what we're doing are. They asked some great questions, and Andrew and I were quite verbose in our answers. So while we're talking, please head over there. So many questions that you might ask in the next hour and a half are answered there, I guarantee it. So, the delay. As you folks know, we have been crunching through beta. You've seen the cameras, you've seen the live streams, yada yada. We've been working really hard. The problem is, hard work alone doesn't necessarily guarantee success. And as we got through crunch, we hit a point where we looked at things and said, you know what? We are not going to be able to make a certain system work the way we needed it to work in order to make beta. And that system, unfortunately, is the ability system. Let's be honest. We're trying to do something hard. We've always said that. Our ability system, our air system, is like nothing in any MMORPG on this planet. The amount of work that was needed to get that ability system working and will be needed to get it working just wasn't done properly in order to get us into beta. And a few months ago, Andrew and I and some members of the team sat down, we looked at the system, we looked at where we were with it, and we were worried. We made a decision based on what we saw to make some changes at the studio in terms of who was doing what and how we were doing things, because we honestly believed we could still get to beta with the current system, but with some changes. Unfortunately, as we got deeper and deeper into the beta, or into the development, and as Ben was entering more and more abilities, the fragility of the system proved to be too much.
And that's, I'd say, the fragility on the technical side as opposed to the design side.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and I say this in one of the interviews as well. When you guys are looking, and I hope you're not too upset, and I know a lot of you will be, the one person that I don't want you to blame at all is Ben. Okay, Ben has been doing a great job, and I don't blame the artist either, obviously.
No, you should blame the art. It's Michelle's.
Okay, now that bus just left the station. But no, Ben's system, the things that he's been designing, the things that he's been laying out, no fault there. He is designing a great system. The problem is the code wouldn't support it, and so we had a choice. We had a really important choice, and this is one that Andrew and I made as leaders of the studio, which is why we're here right now together. We made the decision first to try to get into beta with the current system, but then when we saw it was not impossible, but difficult, and we could have thrown a lot more Band-Aids on it and a lot of staples and other things to try to get into beta, we said the hell with it. I mean, it just wasn't worth it.
I mean, especially for this, I felt like this is a place where Camelot Unchained needs to be able to get out front and, JB put it best as plant the flag and say, hey, this is what combat is, and it's not a part that we can go halfway on. I mean, there are a lot of parts where we can. If we do not have the world's greatest way of claiming and owning building plots, the core of the game is still there. This was something where I felt like we needed to do it right, because a whole lot more people are going to see the game for the first time when we put the beta tag on it, and when we do,
those are the kinds of, or I hope, the kind of leadership that you expected from us. And that's what we did by making this decision. Again, we could answer with you folks. We've always come before you, good and bad. Here's Andrew and I sitting here, not a community manager, not a producer, not some other guy that was paid to sit in front of the camera and take questions and take some heat. This is Andrew and I, your two co-founders, sitting here talking to you as backers and as other interested parties. Andrew and I answering the questions of MOP and Massively. Those are the kinds of, or I hope, the kind of leadership that you expected from us. And that's what we did by making this decision. Again, we could have skated by. We could have taken the team and said, okay, guys, all hands, we're going to phony it up a bit and try to get into beta. To hell with that. That's not us. And we'll deal with the brickbats. We'll deal with the refunds. Hopefully there won't be many. But look, if you, feel that you can't wait another couple months, and hopefully it won't even be that much to get into beta, that's fine. Go right ahead. We are doing what is necessary to give you guys the game that you backed, the game that can handle the ability system as Ben has been laying out, or as I articulated the vision for from the beginning. An ability system where you players are going to have more than 30 classes, where you're going to have the ability to create the abilities for each of those classes, and those abilities have to be able to interact with each other. And in order to do that, we had to refactor the current ability system to work the way it needs to going forward. And in terms of what that means, Andrew is going to explain it, but before anyone even worries that, oh my God, they're rewriting the entire ability system, we're not. It's not. If it was that bad, we'd be sitting here on our knees begging you guys to be patient for another 6 months. That's not what we're doing. And now I'll turn it over to Andrew, and he can talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so how did we get in this place? When we first started out, since very early on, you've been able to walk up to somebody and whack them with a sword, and you've been able to cast a fireball across the map. Those were sort of core things. And that was something that, just put in early to have the most basic framework of combat there. And where we'd kind of grown over the course of the project is, all right, here's another thing, bolt that on. Here's another thing, bolt that on. Here's another thing, bolt that on. And let's say there was not the kind of architectural focus that we really needed to have. And some of that you can blame on me directly for, directing too many engineering resources into just getting things scaled up, and as opposed to what the combat was, just supporting 1,000 characters as opposed to, well, what happens, what's the best thing for one character. Then and some of that is the way things evolved. It's we were always trying to show as much progress as possible. We are a crowd-funded game. Crowds don't always get excited about, hey, this system under the hood is totally way more flexible than I would have liked it to than it was a month ago. And so, you bolt on something new, and you can check the box and say, hey, new feature, and that gets people excited. So we were chasing that, not gonna lie. And in this case, this particular system reached a point where there were so many things bolted together that it just was inflexible. It became locked in its own rigidity. And Essentially, we got to a certain point in beta, and most of the things we had, it was, all right, there's still this much to be done, and there are these bugs to be fixed, but, there's a clear path from where we are right now to getting this to beta, and then there were these other several major things that we said that, was like, this hasn't progressed the way we would like, and we're not even sure how much longer it is going to take to get that done to where we want to go. The path isn't necessarily clear. And what all of those things had in common is they were trying to push the ability code we had beyond what it was able to do right now. And so we sat down and said, all right, so what do we need to do? How many more things would it take to just bolt on to this? And I was looking at about somewhere between 8 and 10 man weeks of work to just work around the inflexibility that we had. And, at that point we would still have the inflexibility, and we'd have a whole bunch of abilities that, had weird bugs and edge cases in them, but we would have had it. And I looked at the total time we were going to spend and said, we have reached a point where it is going to be faster in the long run to take a step back and go forward along a different and cleaner path, and that's where we are right now. We are taking a step back from where we were, but there is a better path that we can take than that, and the net result is I think the game is going to ship sooner than it would have if we had not done this, and that's something I really do want to emphasize. This is about getting the game ultimately done, as opposed to spending extra time to get things done now, and extra time the month after that, and extra time the month after that. It's how can we make things run smoothly all the way up to launch.
And that's the key. I mean, what Andrew just said is really important. We're taking this step and making this decision in order to make it easier for us and make it faster for us to deliver this game. One of the things that Andrew and the team are doing, for example, is with the new system, Ben and I are going to have the ability to do direct C# scripting with abilities, and even with the crafting system. Okay, well, it's still something. And with the crafting system as well. So that's going to mean Ben, for example, can do more things with abilities without always having to knock on a programmer.
The little things like, hey, this gets a bonus. This gets a bonus of 10% of that other stat is one little line of equation inserted there, as opposed to let's get 4 people involved to build out a way to make that change.
Exactly, and that's huge. I mean, and that's a really important thing for you folks to keep in mind. It may seem small, and in terms of programming, as Andrew says, it is small. On the other hand, it gives Ben and I the ability to get a lot of things done without having to get even one programmer involved just to add a line of C# or 2 lines of C#. And that's a big deal, and it's a big deal for you folks, because we are trying, and by making these changes, we are trying to deliver the game actually faster and better. And better is really important. Ben, when he laid out the system, and by the way, Ben didn't keep the system to himself. It wasn't like Ben was working in an ivory tower, and then at the end, here you go, and nobody had any idea what was going on. That certainly was not the case. As the system that we're designing got more complicated and got more interesting in terms of play, it needed more from the ability system. Now it will be able to get that, and now it will be able to fulfill the vision that not only I have, and not only Ben has as well, but other people in this company who are game players want to see us have. So that's the the big summary. Other things that are going to come as a result of this, we are no longer going to offer stretch goals until we get into beta. And the reason why we're doing this, and there's been some back and forth on the IT boards, and some of the questions you can see on Massively, for example, one of the questions touched on this. This isn't a penance. though it was a good question by Bree. This is what we think we have to do to continue to earn the trust of our backers. And that's really important. We don't think we have to regain your trust because we've been working really hard. We've been making lots of progress. Anyone who's been in the build and seen our screenshots or our vines knows that we're making progress. But in order to keep the trust of our backers, we have to keep doing the right things. And in our minds, to keep putting up bright shinies for, hey, we're going to do this for, and even for an extender pack, or hey, we're going to do this down the road. Until we get into beta, we don't want to do that. So, we are no longer going to offer stretch goals, or we're going to stop the stretch goals until we get into beta. At that point, of course, we'll be happy to put them back on because we love them. But until then, none. We're also going off crunch as a team. I couldn't be prouder of the effort that our guys and gals have made here than I have over the last now 7 weeks. People have put in a tremendous effort. They've responded by not only working hard, but doing so, you don't want to say necessarily with a smile, though we do try to keep it light, but they've really done so with, the best of intentions. And it's important for us as a team now to take a step back, and especially for Andrew and I as leaders, to tell them to take a step back and work, normal hours. So the Munchies for Crunchies is going to go away because we have no right to ask you guys for Munchies and Crunchies that we're not going to be taking.
Well, also, I think we're all just getting fat. Honestly, please stop. No more. Please, no more.
Okay,
candies.
now I'm self-conscious. No body shaming. So we're going to do that as well, and we thank everybody. The Munchies and Crunchies was great. For those who sent in donations, we thank you, and you're going to receive a special.
To put it.
I know, but I don't want it. We don't want you guys to burn out. I mean, that's really important.
And that's that there's good kind of hard work and there's bad kind of hard work. Sort of the rehabilitation strike team, which is me, Mark Hernandez, Tim Mills, and the almighty JB. The next few weeks are gonna suck. There's no nice way to put it.
I know, but I don't want it. We don't want you guys to burn out. I mean, that's really important.
And that's that there's good kind of hard work and there's bad kind of hard work. When it feels like you're working 12 hours a day to push a boulder up a hill, that's really discouraging and demoralizing. It is. And
Yep.
I think a lot of what we were trying to do with the abilities, or with the old system, trying to work around the brittleness and the inflexibility, a lot of people were starting to feel that way. And then you're
Yep.
like, hey, you know what? We could actually just roll the boulder down through that valley, and it's really easy to be very enthusiastic about turning that thing around and saying, yes, let's go.
True.
There are a lot of people on this team kind of said, I'm just going to quote Rob, who said, woo! So
boy, what else? Test, yes. So just to give you an update on where we're at, we're hoping to have a new push to Cube either this week or early next week with the new building materials in, which would be very cool.
and new UI.
And new UI, we hope as well. We hope to have the servers back open for testing in the next couple of weeks. As folks who were in our last IT test know, obviously, as we've told you, we put a lot of code in all around the same time. And so that, of course, had some issues. We are correcting those. I know George is happily working on some of the client crashes we saw.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, the people who aren't on the rehabilitation team are, they're still here. So George is going to be taking the lead on improving client performance and stability. Dave's going to be doing a lot of rendering things and adding some shinies. Bull's going to be doing a bunch of terrain things and working on audio and ambiances, and Rob is going to be putting the final touches on buildings and destroying of buildings, so I can finally get my Helm's Deep moment.
So yes, everything is moving ahead really. I know it seems kind of odd to say it, especially now, but actually things are moving along quite well. And I rarely guarantee anything, and you folks know this, but I can guarantee you one thing. The system that Andrew and the team are putting together for the ability system right now is going to mean we can bring about the system that we have envisioned right from the beginning, and that's really important.
We've all, like, the work on this. We hit the ground running on this actually about a week ago, and so it's been a little bit of it's been internal now. Mark was out sick, so we didn't make the announcement more than anything else. But now that it is, I don't care. We'll stream our whiteboard sessions. You can watch us do this.
And that's the other thing. We did want to make this announcement a little bit before, now, but I was as sick as a dog last week when we wanted to let you folks know this. And the other thing that was really important, and is important, is that we didn't want to come before you a few weeks ago and just say, oh, it's delayed and we don't have an idea of what we're going to do yet. We wanted to be sure that everything was in place. We wanted to, and again, by we, obviously, I mean Andrew and myself and the team, we wanted to know what the path moving forward was and how, when we could get there and when would we see progress and what would it look like, and not just go, hey guys, sorry, we're not going to make beta 1, don't know when we're going to make beta 1, and we don't know what we're going to do, so oh well. We didn't want to go down that path. So we apologize, for that delay as well, but we wanted to be able to sit in front of you now and answer the questions of places like MOP and MOP and MMORPG in a way that actually was logical and honest and straightforward and not evasive at all. And I think you'll see, if you haven't already gone over there to look at the questions and answers, I doubt you'll find many instances where you've seen the lead developers and the co-founders of the studio address every question that we were asked. And those questions that you see are all the questions they sent us. We addressed everyone heads on, straightforward, no BS, no evasion, no anything other than just the truth. And this is something I want you all to keep in mind, and I'm going to ask Max, to turn comments back on, and we'll get the Q&A started. We are coming to you unlike almost any other developers you've probably ever seen, in the industry. We're talking to you here, we'll talk to you on the forums. We're owning up to what was a mistake, what was a problem. We're telling you what we need to do to fix it. We're telling you how we're going to fix it. And we're doing this as the co-founders. We're not doing this via a community manager. Again, we're not doing this via a producer. We're doing it as the two guys in charge of the studio. And I hope you'll keep that in mind. Because right now all we're asking for is a little bit of patience. We're not even asking for more money. We're not even putting up, again, stretch goals or, things for you guys to buy. All we're asking right now is for you folks to have a little more patience, because we are trying to do what we as gamers, and we're both gamers, and obviously you folks are gamers, that gamers have wanted from the beginning, not just from Kickstarter, but from any game. You want accountability. You want to be able to talk to the developers, and you want the leadership of the development team not only to talk to you, but to do the right thing. And that's what we're trying to do. As Andrew said and I said, we could have, half-assed it. We could have tried to sneak this into beta, and we're not. We didn't have to be here. We didn't have to do things the way we're doing. We don't have to offer refunds. We don't have to do any of this. But we're doing it because it's the right damn way to do it. And we're asking for you guys to be patient and give us just a little more time to get into beta. And we want your support for that. And I hope you'll give it to us because, frankly, this is what you should want. You should want a studio that is acting this way, that is trying to do the right thing and not just cutting stuff down and saying, hey, it's beta. Because we could have done that. What does beta mean nowadays anyway? The use of it has been so abused by developers such as me back with Dark Age and other studios over the years that it doesn't have that much meaning. But we didn't do that. We did the right thing, and we hope you guys will do the right thing as well. So, I'll say a couple more words and then turn over to Andrew if he wants to say anything else. I want to thank you as always for your support. I want to thank you, I hope, for your understanding of this delay. And, again, we will be here for the Q&A, and I'll be on the forums. I'll be on, MOP. I'll be on MMO. And, we'll be talking to you.
And if you absolutely are convinced this is the end of the world, check back in a couple months and we'll prove you wrong. Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
I am personally very, very happy and excited about where we are going from here. It hurt to rip the Band-Aid off, but things are good now.
Exactly, and that's the best way to look at it, and I hope you share that outlook. So, Max, get it started.
All right, folks. There we go. All right. Comments and questions.
Twitch explodes.
Philtorius asks, does this delay translate into an overall game delay as well? Or are you still on track for a full game release in 2016?
Does this well, so there's actually two questions there. Are we still hoping to be out in 2016? We haven't said that. Again, what we care about is getting this game out in the right way. Will this translate to an overall delay? Andrew addressed that. I addressed it. We hope not. We actually do. And I know it seems counterintuitive right now. We are hoping that this actually speeds up the development cycle.
Yeah, from where we are right now, making this decision has a clearer and shorter path to getting the game launched. Making this decision earlier probably would have gotten the game launched earlier.
Yep.
But I can't go back in time.
We can't.
I did the best I could to keep everybody happy by showing progress every month. And sometimes that some of that progress was built on a shaky foundation, and we've reached the point when we have to fix that foundation.
Correct. And as Andrew, touched on earlier, and I touched on as well, when we say this in the interviews too, we hoped we could fix the foundation, and that was our mistake. We couldn't. We thought we could, we couldn't. But again, it's really important, it's hugely important to know we are not rewriting the ability system. We are not just tearing the whole thing out at all. That's a whole different story. We are not doing that. We are
chopping it into little pieces and then making each of the pieces into Legos that we can stick together. That would be the best way to describe it.
That's a great analogy. And that's perfect. So that's why we think it will actually speed up the game's release. And I know it seems counterintuitive.
A lot of people thanking us for all of our transparency. Let's see. Odilvik asks, with some of the team focusing on ability code, will the rest of the team be able to polish the rest of beta even more so than originally planned?
Yes. I knew we couldn't wait. I figured that would be one of the first questions I was asked. And yep, Andrew just gave the answer.
And I will say, most of that is going to be client focused because we're pulling in most of the server talent to work on this. The client will be better. The server will not see significant changes because the server people are working on this.
And as Andrew laid out a few minutes ago, we are putting some of our most senior guys, including Andrew and including Mark, again, the senior programmer who your stretch goal helped bring in, onto this solution, onto the rehabilitation. And that's how important and crucial we think the ability system is, and how much we want it to get done right this time. That's how serious we are about it.
Cleanse Cersei says, is that only a beta delay? Phew, I thought you were giving up on the ability build system and other great ideas and ambitions.
Oh my God! No, never. Well, I should say never, because you never want to say that. But no, that's the whole point, and that's what
We are resetting the technical design so that the game design does not have to change.
Excellent. And that's so important, guys. We could have done that. We could have absolutely used this as an excuse to pull the plug on one of the more difficult parts of this game and said, "Now, you know what? It's too hard. We're going to do it in an easier way." We are not doing it. We're not doing that at all. And again, as Andrew said, we're getting Lego pieces from, instead of a shaky, building, we're now having very solid Lego pieces. But one thing that's important about that is Ben is not going to have to redo all the abilities. He won't have to redo most of the abilities. He won't have to, I don't know if he's not going to have to redo any ability.
You'll have to re-import the spreadsheet.
Yeah, exactly. Big deal, right? And that's the beauty of this approach. So it's not like we've had this huge setback, oh my God, it's going to be 6 months, or we're, as you asked, or we were going to scrap the system. We're not. We want to deliver the system that we have talked about, and the only way to do it is doing it the way we're doing it now.
Gunnins asks, are there any other systems that may have ended up more complex than originally thought and that are at the risk of meeting the same fate?
None that I'm aware of.
Things that are not supporting what we need to do at this point, I don't see any on the horizon. The packet processing in the user proxies definitely has ended up more complicated than originally thought, but it's working really well. So, there's necessary complexity and there's unnecessary complexity, and sometimes there is a hard problem that needs a hard solution, and sometimes there is a simpler problem where you end up with an overly complicated solution, and that's a sign that you did it wrong. So this is in the latter category. Most of the places that are complicated, I think the complexity is necessary.
We got a lot of messages of support. I'm picking one at random. Takes KC says, this was the best stream ever. I am so proud of your sticking to the direction of doing it right instead of fast.
Thank you.
Logan Moss asks, are we going to see more programmer streams?
Yes. We've been, honestly, because we were kind of in this state of, like, the conversations on the programming team in the last week and a half have been about nothing but this, and because Mark was, dead to the world and unable to get out on the stream, I tried calling him, and his voice barely came through because he had horrible sinus action. Now that you will see a ton of programmer streams now that what the programmers are working on is actually announced.
And that's a big deal. I mean, obviously, we weren't trying to hide what we were doing. We wanted to be able to make the announcement when we were ready to make the announcement, and then I just went and got really sick. So yes, we're going to stream programmers. Our overall streaming is going to decrease, over the next few weeks, and give some of the other team members a break. But streaming for the programmers, I'll also do a stream or two. But the morning with Max and tea with Genesee, we're going to get off that for a little bit so we can focus on some other things. And then as we move into beta, and I know this is something Andrew, and I are both excited about, we'll go back to having more streaming, but in a different way. And we'll talk about that more once we get into beta.
Suicide Run asks, how's the hiring process going?
Very well.
We made an offer to somebody last week.
Yep.
And
That's
hoping to get all of that nailed down.
Well, that's why I've been checking the phone. We're hoping to hear today.
Has he signed it yet? Has
Yeah,
he signed it yet?
that's what I've been doing. We've been waiting for that. So hopefully, if my phone beeps, we'll get an acceptance.
We, he probably won't make it onto the streams immediately after he starts. We do have a probationary period, and we don't want to, jump the gun. But once we are totally solid, like, yeah, this guy's going to be around, then you'll see him.
Yep. And I just had a second interview with another programmer today that Andrew's going to have a third interview with later this week. I have 2 more interviews, second interviews with programmers that if they get through me, then we pass them on to Andrew. And we've still got our 2 recruiting firms, in-house recruiter, and a friend of mine still looking for people. My goal, our goal, is to add at least 3 more programmers to the team. That's the bottom line. We want everyone that we put out a stretch goal for and more to bring into this team to deliver this game with the kind of quality that we all want.
Tojo for You wants to know, would it be possible to let Beta 1 testers into Alpha, since the delay will put us out several months?
Absolutely. Look, just as we did when we delayed Alpha, we did something nice for the Alpha guys. We'll do something for the Beta guys as well. Not a problem. It's important to us, as always, to take care of the people who stand by us. And so, you Beta 1 guys, you're going to get stuff, that kind of treatment as well. And same. Go ahead.
Yeah, and just in terms of what you can expect. In the very short term, you're going to see a lot of the skills and abilities vanish temporarily while we are reworking the framework, and then you will see them come back at a much faster rate than they came in originally.
Yep.
Tanzatante asks, how are you going to get rid of all the excess calories we made you eat during Crunch?
Well, from my standpoint, I have to start going back to the gym. And yeah, because of Crunch, I wasn't going to leave the team in order to go to the gym, and I certainly wasn't getting up at dark 30 to go to the gym, because then I'd be useless. So I know from my standpoint, back to the gym and back to doing more rehab on my knee, actually starting tomorrow.
Yeah, Bull described it as, well, there's rehabilitation on the code, and there's just rehab on the coders. So it's like we'll all be doing a different kind of crunches.
Yes, we will.
Jadakin asks, will this impact the collision system at all?
Absolutely not. That's rock solid. We're totally happy with it. Rob is taken that and run with it, and it's great.
And Rob should be rejoining us very shortly. Shoulder surgery was a success. And as a matter of fact, I know he is heading back up to Virginia, right now.
Artchoke asks, are there more Band-Aids you'll have to rip in the future, or are all the foundations good to go?
For shipping this game, I think, this is the most likely one. There are several things that, if we were to try and take the same engine and make a space game, for instance, there are some Band-Aids that, some things there, well, this is definitely good enough for Camelot and for something that doesn't have orbital mechanics. But for this game, I think this is the last of the major, oh my god, kinds of things.
Camelot in space!
Steel Rain asks, will FNF come back, and will testing become more frequent for the backers?
Yes, and that is really important. That is hugely important. Part of the reason the FNFs, had to go away was, and you guys, again, you IT folks, and look, even the Alpha and Beta guys know this, is that as we put in a lot of the code that we needed to, things broke. We knew they would. That's what happens when you do a lot of code merges, and especially when you're adding a lot of new tech. So one of our focuses, as Andrew, talked about, the guys who are doing abilities, doing abilities. The other folks are being led by George in order to get not only polish, but things like crashing and performance back to where it was. So yes, once that happens, we're going to start the FNFs, and certainly even if all we're doing before the abilities even go in, is get the everything back and running and looking pretty again and not crashing. Client, because the server's been still rock solid. Then we'll have you guys come on in and take a look at things. And I spoke to George this morning, or emailed with him this morning, and I know he's tracking down one of the problems already, which looks like a memory leak. I mean, not a memory leak, a crash on certain boards. So he's investigating that.
Helzek has some support and a question. I had been very optimistic about Beta 1 release. I remember reading in newsletters about the ability system being outdated and needing eventual updating, so you've done a great job leaving nothing completely out of left field. What I'd like to ask is if you expect all other Beta 1 requirements to be ready by the time the ability system has been remade.
I am optimistic about that. So we will go with a guarded yes. I mean, there's always uncertainty. There's always, here's this bug that cannot be tracked down. But I think this is the long pole in the tent, so to speak.
Sakurix asks, are you still going to invite Beta 2 people to Beta 1, like you said when you had the first delay?
Of course. Absolutely. That'd be mean not to do that.
Our CSE John says Space Goblins confirmed. ArcPit asks, the Beta 1 backers with invites ready to go, will these still not be able to be used for Beta 1?
No, that's one of the things that we also are still trying to get done. There have been some issues with PayPal that we're still trying to work out. And as soon as we can, believe me, we want to get the people with Beta 1, pledgers and tiers, and invites, to get into Beta 1. That's hugely important. We could not, and this is one of the things we had talked about here for months, we could not open Beta 1 without allowing everyone who either had purchased a tier with somebody else or who were expecting that tier from someone else to be able to get into Beta 1. That would have been crappy, and we weren't going to do it. So yes, that will be working, or we're not calling Beta 1.
Pretty Pony asks, even with stretch goals gone and munchies for crunchies gone, are there still going to be ways to support CSE?
Tell your friends to back us.
That's one way, certainly. Look, we're going to keep the tiers open. We're not shutting that down, of course, because that would be foolish. If you want to support us financially, great. Of course, we appreciate it. But if you want to support us in other ways, just as Andrew says, talk about us. Be supportive of us. We're trying to do the right thing. And we hope that it's appreciated by our backers, because we could have gone another way, and we just never have in the past, and we don't want to do that now, and we're not going to do that in the future. So that kind of support we absolutely love. It means a lot. And I know this is going to sound kind of I don't know, squishy, but it really does mean a lot to the team here and to me and Andrew personally when we see the kind of support we've gotten from our backers, and whether it's just sending a nice note or sending, pizza sometimes, or not that, because again, we're trying to lose weight, or just seeing nice things on the forums. It means a lot to us. We read these things. We actually pay attention. As you know, we are on the forums.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I hate to say it, but we are not robots. There is just like characters in the game can have a morale bonus or a penalty to how hard they hit, we have a morale bonus or penalty to how well we code. It's a real thing.
Yeah. So that kind of support we love. It does mean a lot to us. This is not, as you guys who are in the forums know, this isn't BS. We're there. We post, we read, we interact. So we love that kind of support.
Kind of a follow-up question. Samson WS asks, Why opt for a moratorium on new stretch goals rather than one that might help bring in those remaining programmer positions?
And we thought about that. So the problem is, again, for us, it's a matter of trust. We have had those stretch goals for programmers, and we haven't brought in, while we brought in Mark and George, we haven't brought in anybody new since. When we do that, then I think we have absolutely every right to go out and put up another stretch goal. No problem with that. But we have to do what we, have said. And so putting out yet again another stretch goal for a programmer, or even for more artists right now, would have seemed to me, and I discussed this with the team, a bit disingenuous. And maybe we're overreacting, or maybe I'm being too cautious, but I'd much rather be that than ever be put in a position, where people are looking at us and going, oh, look at these guys, they're late, and now they're throwing up a bright shiny to get you to spend more money on their game. We never, ever want to be in that position.
So, yeah.
But I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Yeah, once we are in beta, I think we have a lot more credibility to say, hey, this is where we want to add, but the focus right now needs to be on what we need to deliver everything that we've already promised.
Exactly, including other programmers. So keep your fingers crossed.
B of Gray asks, general question, how does the development of Unchained compare to the development of Dark Age of Camelot? Any thoughts?
Oh, God. So many. So how does it compare? So I'll try not to talk too long about this, because frankly, I could talk for a really long time. I'll give a short answer, though. So the biggest difference between Dark Age and Camelot Unchained was in the Dark Age days, we had a couple advantages. The first advantage was we were using an already developed rendering engine, and that gave the Mythic team a leg up on this
And
team.
networking engine,
Yeah, from our old games. So that gave the team a leg up. The second advantage we had back then was, of course, that the industry was very different. There weren't dozens and dozens of MMOs out. There wasn't WoW. There wasn't even now something as beautiful as Black Desert Online. It was a different age, and the expectations were different. And
Does it crash less than EverQuest? Wow, okay, buy it. People will buy it.
It's true. So things were really different then. What this team has accomplished, and I've said this before on streams, and I've said it on interviews, and I'll keep saying it again because it's all true. What this team has accomplished already, and the tech that we have for the size of this team and for the junior status of so many of the engineers when they started, is really impressive. And, I know it sounds like BS, but it isn't. These guys and gals have delivered on something already that no other MMO can do. You've been in the test where we have had hundreds of people in a very small space, then thousands of backers and bots in a slightly larger space. You've seen the destructibility we already have, real destructibility.
Rob dropping in 1,000 buildings, all of which can be destroyed and built on at once.
Exactly. You've seen how quickly the art team can turn things out, and the quality that they can turn things out. You've seen a new UI and a new patcher, that looks fantastic. That is one of the best in the industry, in my certainly less than humble opinion. You've seen our website do redesigns. Everything. You see Max put up with my terrible writing, while at the same time working on a newsletter and working on a board game. You've seen a team that at every level has been really productive and has worked so hard, not only to deliver something that we already are very proud of, but to also to continue to earn your guys' trust. And that's something that no matter whether it's this delay or it's when we're on delivering something great, that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of the effort of everyone who's at the studio.
All right. Odilvik wants to know, will the new ability system just make implementing new abilities easier, or will it actually improve overall game performance?
So this is code that lives almost entirely on the server, so it's not going to directly affect things on your client. But as part of this, there's been a focus on and how do abilities and animations really directly interact. And there are just some glorious things that have happened around the office of me pretending to be a skald who is simultaneously singing a song and executing independent attacks with dual wielded weapons. And I don't know, Max, you ready to do some camera work? Let's do it.
Okay.
Oh, I'm hurling spells at you.
All right, yeah.
Okay, now that was unscripted, like everything here.
Papa Coco wants to know,
PK.
when stretch goals are reinstated, will the donations received while they are down count toward them when they restart?
Depends how long we have them down, and it also depends what we get also in terms of refunds and stuff. But we'll see. We actually hadn't thought that far into it, because frankly, the important thing is not what happens between now and then. What's important is, again, doing things the right way.
Caraptithid wants to know if we're going to get a more simplified Beta 1 check completion list than the current card system.
No, we love the card system. We think the card system, and this goes to, again, the transparency that's so important to us. There is no other developer that I'm aware of, and always, as always, folks, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. There is no other, certainly Kickstarter, crowdfunded backed developer who is showing you everything as backers, what we're working on that has any importance whatsoever, via the user stories. So we want to continue that. We want you guys and gals out there to know what we're doing, to always, be able to look at this team and go, yep, they're being productive, or maybe this week wasn't as productive. We're not hiding things from you. We're not putting out updates every month or a couple months going, hey, these are the cool things we worked on, and we don't tell you anything else. You guys know everything that we're working on, from me and design through the art team, through Ben, through Max, Genesee, and programming. You guys know everything that's going on in the studio, and we want to keep it that way, not only through beta, but also through launch and live of this game. We love this system, and we intend to keep it.
Although I would say, feel free to make a suggestion outside of chat if there's a way that you feel like that information could be presented better.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're not going to turn it down to, and here's a big thermometer that slowly fills, because that does not reflect the reality of the way software is written. It's not just like, you put the game seed in your Vox Software S and come back X hours later and it comes out. But yeah, if you feel like there's a better way to present some of this, we are open to suggestions.
Always.
Really.
Speaking of suggestions, Hamston1985 wants to know if we could have some sort of cube contests with fixed themes and community voting.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's something we've talked about. We want that. The reason we haven't done so yet is because we wanted to wait until Cube was further along, especially with all the cool stuff we've done now with a new material system and lighting systems that are going in. An interface and a new interface that's going in. Once that's all in, yes, we absolutely want competitions. We want to do the things that we've talked about in the past, about having people, contribute, such as, good old Necro and his amazing, mad building skills, contribute to, the development of the game as well. And just like our mod squad, we'll reward people for that. We love that stuff.
Takes KC wants to know, where are we in determining the final race lineup for each realm?
Oh, no, nowhere near doing that. We're going to put out a lot more races for you folks to look at before we get even close to that decision. And that decision, as you know, or as you may know, we're going to leave some of those choices up to you backers. Not just to you. I mean, I don't know you well enough to give you that power yet.
Yet.
Um,
They're gonna come to the office.
They might. Who knows?
Nine
Max
Gin-
did.
Oh.
That's true. He did. Bearing gifts.
Nine Gingers points out the streams and feedback are two-way. We know that our feedback and support makes the development of this game for us more important to you guys. Let's see. More questions. Steel Rain asks, has the work for the animations stretch goal been sent out to other studios?
Oh God, no. I haven't even gotten to that point yet because we've been so focused on getting into beta. Once we get into beta, and once we get some other code done here, Tyler will be able to sit back because, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, because that's going to be part of his job going forward, is finding the right studio or person, potentially even, to outsource to. But doing something now with that would have been premature.
Jodikin asks about Brian.
Okay, what's the question?
He wants to know if Brian was involved in the ability code.
So, knew a question like this was going to come up, and as you can imagine, I could have had Max simply not ask it. But we've always been transparent. The other thing we've always been, and this goes back to my Mythic days, we have never ever thrown anyone under the bus. We will never throw anyone under the bus, publicly. That's nonsense, and I know you don't mean it that way, but all we'll say, and just to be very clear, we have always said the same thing about people who've left the studio. Sometimes they leave on their own, sometimes they're asked to leave, sometimes it's mutual. So the only thing I'll say is what I have said in the past about Brian and other people who have left the studios, whether it's programmers or artists, that we wish them nothing but the best going forward. We appreciate all the efforts he or they made as individuals and members of the city-state, entertainment studio. Please do not read anything more into that. We just will not comment in any way because that would be unfair. And again, I have never done that. I know Andrew is not a big believer in it. No matter what as well, whether he touched it or didn't touch it, at the end of the day, we're the two guys in charge of the studio.
And don't take that as an evasive answer, because it's always an evasive answer. Even when if you say something nice about somebody, then every time you don't say something nice, people read things into that. So you can't even say good things because that sets you up.
Exactly, and that's really important. This is something I have believed in. Again, going back to Mythic Entertainment, even when some people left that I was happy to see leave, or people that weren't happy to see leave, we still never said anything other than what we're saying. And that's the way it should be, and that's the way, on a personal level, I've also conducted myself in regards to, other companies out there or other individuals out there. So it has to remain that way. I am really sorry, but that's just how it has to be.
Tirsus asks, can you guys give one little known fact about yourselves?
One little known fact about, oh God. Sure, okay, I'll start with a little known fact. I met Lady J when I was working as a bouncer at a seafood restaurant back in 1981.
What seafood restaurant?
The Fish Market in Old Town Alexandria.
Okay, I've never been there. I didn't know it was the kind of place that needed a bouncer, though.
Yeah, well, back in those days, they used to serve, and they still do, schooners of beer. These giant, 32 or 64 ounce things of really crappy beer. And this was at the point where people under the age of 21 can drink. So things got kind of interesting in the evening. And so having, as they used to call me, the big guy from New York up at the front of the restaurant, and not just waiting tables, which I usually did, was considered a good thing. And I chased down quite a few people who tried to leave without paying, and got involved in other situations. Big guy from the Bronx. That's my little known fact. Your turn.
When I was 6 years old, what I wanted to do when I grew up was to be the ringmaster of a circus. And instead of that, I am just in charge of...
That's actually pretty
Yeah,
much what you
pretty
did.
much, right? That was my goal as a kid. I wanted to be a circus ringmaster.
Mission
And,
accomplished.
Yeah.
Awesome question. Thank you. Of all the questions we've heard, in the past few years, that is one of the best. Well done. Well friggin' done.
Arbarath wants to know how much of the crafting system will be in Beta 1.
Actually, maybe even a little bit more, depending
More
on...
than it would have been without the ability delay.
That's true. So, what we're working on right now, and I think you've seen some work that John and Dion have been doing on the Vox, and James is going to be doing some UI stuff for it. We hope to have a little bit more in terms of, UI and ease of use for the launch of Beta 1. We currently have, I know, the refining system in. We have the ability to make alloys and to make items out of the alloys. What's important to know, and this is just, and I've said this in multiple, obviously, posts and newsletters and live streams, is the only thing we care about for the opening of Beta 1 is getting the basic formulas, the basic ability in there, the whether it's the UI or a mini game around it or all that sort of stuff, that comes later. What was really important to me, and this is my call, was to get all the formulas in, get all the data in, let's see how it feels from that perspective, and to get your guys' feedback on it. Because after all, building a UI around it, building a game around it, we have the time to get that right. On the other hand, if we don't start with the numbers, if we don't start getting feedback from you folks in terms of how some of this stuff feels and how it interacts with each other, if we don't start that now, that's really dumb. And that would hurt us going forward. And we wanted to give you this stuff and not hide it behind curtains or walls and let you guess at it. You guys are going to get to see the raw data and get all that information. And, as in other parts of the game where you're going to be able to do the same thing, we believe that that was the right and is the right thing to do.
Corvos wants to know, is the engine you've developed future-proof? As in, when new graphical capabilities come along, you'll be able to take advantage of them.
Mostly a lot of what you've seen in the client in the last few months was pulling that forward into sort of the physically based rendering foundation that we feel like, okay, this is going to put us in a better place going forwards. We have a number of things that we are looking forward to doing after launch. One of the bigger things being support for the Vulkan API to get us onto Android and from there onto VR. So we have some, we have plans. Nothing is completely future-proof because you don't know what the future is going to hold. 5 years ago, I don't think a lot of people thought that VR was going to be a thing. But there's definitely modularity there.
And what Andrew said is really important. I mean, again, it doesn't matter whether you're the guys at Epic, doesn't matter whether you're at Crytek. Engines need to be upgraded at times. Other times they have, entirely new versions. But what you've seen already, and I'm glad Andrew brought up PBR, what you guys have seen is that we were able to take something that is certainly considered this generation tech and put it into the current version of the engine. And, we'll be able to do that with a lot of things. And we're going to continue to want to do that with a lot of things, not only because of our relationship with NVIDIA, but because we've got guys like Andrew and George and Dave who are very interested in that kind of tech and know how important it is for us to have it.
Right. Tojo4You asks, would it be possible to set up a small scenario on a server that all Alpha and Beta 1 users could play continuously?
Could we do that? Sure. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. It's something we have talked about as well, just like if you go back to our old, test zone for, Unchained. But let's see how that shakes out. I mean, one of the things that we'll be doing, as you know, for beta are the islands. And so having separate islands, which could even be made smaller and set up for a specific testing like that, certainly a possibility, especially given the fact that we've had this delay.
Tirsis asks, what kind of UI can we expect for beta? Will it be a first iteration, or will it just be minimalist so people can get in and play?
Both. I mean, really, we're not
I mean,
spending.
we're already on our 5th iteration of some things.
Yep.
Other things are not on their first iteration yet, like crafting.
Exactly.
So it's going to be the state that it's in, and I don't know if a lot of people outside, like the really innermost internal test type thing, have seen it, but there's the mod squad. All of our UI development is being done just open source in GitHub, and people are modding it, people are contributing to it right now.
Yep.
And JB is, the master and grand poobah of all of that. So, if you want to add, if the question is, will it be moddable? Hey, jump in now.
Sacrix asked, how is the cash flow for the project? Is it covered all the way if it goes longer than the expected 2016 release date?
We're fine. We're fine through 2016. We're fine through 2017. One of the things that, and thank you, Sacrix, for bringing this up again, is that from the beginning, we said we were going to manage the money intelligently. You've seen our offices. You know that I'm not taking a salary. You know that we're not paying, the kind of salaries that somebody could make, working for Google.
This couch was an IKEA broken floor model. The other couch was the one I'd had in my living room for 20 years.
Yeah, we've been very smart about things and need to continue to be smart just for these reasons. We knew that, anytime you go into a project like this, you know that a delay can happen. You're an idiot if you don't. And so we spent like we were going to have a delay because that's how you have to do things if you want to survive. And so, 2016, let me tell you, Sacrix, not only are we good for, 2016, we're good into 2017. That's not an issue. And it won't be an issue. If it was, frankly, I wouldn't have turned off the stretch goals. And I would have very easily come up with other things, that could have been even more enticing than our typical stretch goals. You needed to know, and our backers needed to know, that when you donated to us, we weren't going to spend money on a lot of frivolities. We weren't going to spend money on, lots of trips around the world to talk at shows. You guys have seen our schedule. You know where, we're always talking about where we're not going versus where we are going. So you have seen that, we have been frugal, or cheap is a good word, as well, in terms of how we're spending the money. And that's why we're in the position now, even with this delay, where that's not an issue. And frankly, if it was an issue, I'd be happy to tell you, because then I could say, hey, give me money, or I shoot this hand, or something like that. So, not a worry.
That is perhaps the weirdest threat ever.
Well, because that means if I shoot this hand, then I can't type, and if I can't type, I can't do stories. Hey, I'm doing things that off the cuff. It's been a long couple weeks. I still can't hear much out of my left ear.
All right. Steel Rain asks, with this streamlining and redesign of the base ability code, can we expect to see more classes earlier?
Earlier than they would have. Well, I think things are going to progress faster than they would have if we had continued to keep doing what we had been doing.
Agreed.
We are coming from behind on this, so in terms of the absolute date, the first ones are going to be later. The last ones will be earlier.
Yep. It's a great way to look at it.
There were some questions about what kind of seafood restaurant needs a bouncer.
Again, one that, served a lot of alcohol. So you didn't go to the fish market in that time to eat, because the only...
Old Town Alexandria is like so frou-frou fancy pants.
But that's now. Back then it was a dump. If you went back then, if you could go back in time to 1970s and 1980s, to where that restaurant was, the waterfront where you now have all those expensive condos, there was the Torpedo Factory. Remember that?
Yeah, the Torpedo Factory's an art gallery now.
Now it is, exactly. It wasn't then. We used to get kegs and sit on the dock after we closed the restaurant. So, yeah, it was a place where you didn't go for the food because the food mostly wasn't very good. The seafood chowder was awesome, but the rest of the food really wasn't all that great. But the drinks were cheap, and Friday nights were crazy. I mean, out the door, just long waits, lots and lots of drinking, and lots of young folks like myself drinking, except I was the one working.
Yeah, young people can't afford Old Town Alexandria anymore.
Yeah, it is, because it's all frou-frou.
I know. Dave can, but Dave doesn't do anything but work and go drinking Strongbows. But there's this it's like the sidebar from a medieval times kind of place called Strongbows, and it's just like, you want your ale and your mead and it's kind of cool if, you're into if you wish you could drink at Renfest year round.
I have to go there at some point. Still haven't been there.
See You Necromaniac wants to know when the building squad will get going.
We're going to be talking about that soon. Again, we didn't want to devote a lot of resources to it until we could get into beta.
You want to explain what the building squad is to everybody?
Oh, I guess so. So I guess guys don't know that yet. So one of the things we talked about the last time, or I think it was the last stream, that we wanted to come up with a building squad with the same way we have a mod squad. And so as soon as we are comfortable devoting some resources to it, we want to work with Necro, with you, Necro, and other folks to help us not only, again, build things for our game like Landmark had been talking about, but more importantly, and this is more importantly, to help us deliver on Cube in the way that you guys as builders want us to deliver in Cube. And that's really important. I mean, we've got a bunch of people here who love building games and who are quite good at it, but it is not in our core expertise like other things are. So we want more feedback from you folks. And as you've seen from the Mod Squad, as you've seen from our forums, you've seen, how we do listen. We want to build a team of people who are really experienced at this, who really want to stream this, who really want to work directly with people like us to tell us what, you want and what you need to help make it better. And just like the Mod Squad, you'll get rewarded for it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you watched Necro's 24-hour stream, there at the beginning, he was like, grumbling, this is so hard to do right. And I was like, oh, hang on. And, I changed
awesome.
Cube in the middle of the stream to give him a little readout. And, when we have the time to work hand in hand with you guys like that, that is when we will start pushing hard on that, so that we are able to have the two-way feedback going in both directions. And until we have time in the schedule to, support you the same way we're supporting us, it wouldn't necessarily have as good a value.
Exactly. So it won't be too much longer, though.
Shag asks, how are animations coming along? Can the next newsletter have some GIFs?
Next newsletter would be probably not, but we'll see.
Gabbert asks, when will we have forum badges? I don't care about beta.
Yeah, I think there was some issue that Charles was looking into many months ago. Bring it up to Genesee, and we'll see what can be done.
Rodolphus asks, will Cube eventually be able to simulate attacks from siege engines or physics on our constructions, or does the team prefer that to be only done in the main client?
I think that's more of a design question, honestly. There's a lot about Cube that's not in the main game. You can build things instantly instead of waiting for the blocks and resources to flow. I do expect we'll start adding in structural stability tests so that you'll know just right off, hey, would this cantilevered span actually fall apart if you dropped into the main game? I don't know how far we will go with putting in siege weapons versus just saying, hey, if you want to throw projectiles at your buildings, you just need to go take them into the game.
Yeah, excuse me. We have not really talked about that here yet. And this is just off the cuff response, I would love to see that in the future. It's certainly nothing that would be a priority in the short term, but I could absolutely see no reason as a designer. Again, this is just as a designer. I'm not talking about in terms of resources here that are that would be required to make it happen. But I could see why, if we're going to allow structural stability, to also allow people to test things like throwing catapults and ballistas and other things at buildings to see how they react to it. But again, that's not something that's even on our radar, for the short term.
All right, you guys are finally slowing with the questions, so keep them coming. I have one. Several people want to know what the state is on our crunch. Are we going to continue crunching, or exactly, is it going to be easier? What exactly does it mean over the next couple weeks?
Okay, so crunch is not a thing that magically gets you more hours. Crunch is inevitably a thing where you are borrowing time from yourselves in the future, and people burn out and wear out. So when there's a short-term goal that, yes, we're trying to push really hard towards this, then it pays off in terms of meeting that goal. In the long-term, bigger picture, it's at best a neutral kind of thing. I mean, you think of it is borrowing time from the future. It's deferring maintenance on things, and we had in the last couple of weeks, kind of coming out of crunch, more than one person from City State has been in the hospital. That's the truth. So when we do not have a specific short-term, oh my God, we are going to borrow time from the future to make this deadline right now, that doesn't pay off. At the same time, I mentioned that, honestly, Mark and Tim and JB and I are really, really enthusiastic about the new ability structure, so we're working hard on that right now, just because, oh my God, we're finally doing this. So in the immortal words of Mark, yes and no. But we're not.
Right.
We're not telling people. Yeah, people who are not on this one critical path are not working 12-hour days right now.
Tirsis asks, in order to get more qualitative data on the UI during beta, will any kind of heat mapping or analytics be used? Or is that a Mod Squad discussion?
Yes. I'm not sure if we're going to be. We have the analytics. We have the data. I'm not sure if we're going to be presenting that to the public in a way that the public is going to be able to use. But we will see. But we are definitely gathering that data internally.
Dendavia asks, what about throwing debris from destruction via catapult?
Yes, that is something we've talked about. I know that's something that, Rob would like to see, something I'd like to see. It's something that kind of fits with the game, and whether it's throwing rubble from debris via catapults, or rubble off the top of your keep, or castle, or other structure down on people, yep, we want that as part of the game.
Yeah, the magic word is emergent gameplay.
Yep. Because after all, if you can throw rubble, then you can throw a Lucapan.
Or for that matter, you can get 3 mages together to all cast a wind field and divert that rubble back at somebody.
Yep, absolutely.
Lodoween asks, is it possible that there will be more than just 7 islands at the launch of Beta 1?
Possibly, but again, that's not something we've really thought about. Please don't think of this delay as a chance for us to get in a ton of new things. We need to be smart about it, mainly because what we don't want is a situation where we end up with adding things that we wouldn't have added that then cause other things to break, which then harms our ability to get into Beta 1.
I think most of the full realization of islands is going to require the people who are working on abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is not something that's going to see more. The places where you are going to see more are things that are primarily client side, because the people who are heavy on the rehabilitation are not the people who do most of the client work.
And we'll be able to get in some additional art resources as well, during the extra time. So that will be a bonus, certainly for Beta 1.
Zadrid has a detailed question. Forgive me if I missed the answer, but according to MoP/MMORPG, you're saying redoing the tech side of the ability system will take weeks, not months. Are you thinking we could expect to be able to see tests preparing for the launch of beta in the next 2 weeks or so?
That is definitely a best case scenario.
Don't forget, we're more than halfway through this month. So even in weeks, we're into the next month. So it depends how you want to read that.
And that's going to be in a case of we have folded it back, we have stripped it down and we do not have a full set of new abilities in yet, but we have a smaller number of abilities that are running through the new system. Would be like a really small, super minimalist set of abilities running through the new system.
Nanolock asks, do you want us backers to get you some cots for the office for the next crunch since it saves commute time?
I missed that, I'm sorry.
Do you want us backers to get you some cots for the office for the next crunch since it saves commute time?
Why? Are people going to be allowed to sleep?
Oh.
Not letting people sleep? Come on.
Chrism950 asks, how big are these islands in Beta 1?
I think most of them are running about 2 to 4 kilometers across. We mostly think not so much in terms of physical size as travel time. Like, how long do we want it to take you to run across this island? So, and having it be more mountainous means it is smaller, for instance. So that's the trade-off there.
All right, folks, we are heading toward the end of the Q&A, so if you have some awesome questions to end the stream with, start writing those up. In the meantime, we have some others here as well. Corvos asks, will there be cave systems or tunneling, as in siege engineering?
No.
Can we expect to see underground or tunnel fighting?
No. We've been clear, at least so far, that the idea of sapping by digging underground is something that is not going to be part of this game. It's not a question of being a technical hurdle, because we could certainly do it. It's more a question from a design standpoint. Would we all want to allow people to do it? And then could we make it fun in any way that didn't involve simply sitting there and going like this, forever to try to dig through or dig under, a keep. So we were very clear about this during the Kickstarter as well. But at least based on every discussion we've had to date, we're not trying to do that for this game.
Yeah, nor will we have trench warfare a la World War I, except with fireballs instead of artillery. It's what are the parts that are fun?
Hmm?
Rhaegar asks, what's the hardest part of being the co-founders of CSE? Mark and Andrew?
You want to start or should I start?
I'll let you start.
The hardest part is just days like today. It's frustrating at times for me when I see refunds like one that just came up because of this delay. But it's part of the price of doing business. It's hard for me to have to sit here and deliver bad news. I never like delivering bad news. Now, while I think the news is good in the long term, and I think it's even good, as Andrew has pointed out multiple times, it's good for the team's morale and it's good for the game. And even in the short term, it's still hard. I mean, I want to see this game as badly as anybody out there. And as you folks know, I'm putting a lot of my own money, into this game. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not worth anything like some of the other folks, even in our industry. And so the amount of money I'm putting in hurts as well. But I want to make this game, and I want to build out this studio, and I want to work with Andrew, not only now, but in the future. So anything like this is hard to do. And it is, I think, certainly one of the, if not the hardest part, of my job.
So I've acquired a certain zen about what people on the internet have to say about me, for better or for worse. But for me, the hardest part is the sheer amount of stuff that's not actual software development that I have to worry about. Starting a business is very, very different from being in charge of a department within a business. And whether that's recruitment or, this is, everything you do is marketing. It's whether it's worrying about what, is our pay scale fair, like all the things that aren't just let's make some software is, wow, there's just so much of that.
Dark Society Network has an interestingly worded question. Are fluids going to play any role in RVR at or after launch? For example, mages flooding poorly designed structures by conjuring up lots of rain clouds.
That's definitely not going to be a thing that is in at the launch of the game. I'm not going to say never, but I would rather launch sooner than have that. It's really cool. It's a really cool idea, though.
Arcane Cloister asks, is the air system affected by the new ability system?
No, Andrew had already, you probably missed it. Andrew had already addressed that question. The air system is rock solid. This has absolutely nothing to do with air, because this is really how the ability is put together and how it goes through the pipeline in order to then be instantiated in the world. So air is good.
This is a technical redesign so that there does not have to be a gameplay redesign.
All right, hit me with a good final question, folks, so we can wrap this up right.
Wrap it like a mummy.
Exactly. Well, this isn't it, but Lotoween wants to know if Max will get to voice the character Bob for the depths. All right. I think this is pretty good. Foggy asks, what is the best or the most rewarding tech that was put in the last couple weeks?
In the last couple weeks. How do you pick? I'm gonna give this one to Rob. Like the stuff Rob has done to take buildings to the next level, right up to the point where he had to go into the hospital and get his shoulder worked on. I think is some of the most exciting big super payoff stuff. The thing that in the last week, specifically, the thing I'm most excited about seeing, hopefully sometime next week, is grouping. Long overdue, and I think the design we have is about per system warbands and things. Have you talked about that yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. I won't say any more.
There's some good stuff. And by the way, just to clarify what Andrew said, since JB is known to be working on it, it's not overdue because of JB's delay. There isn't a delay. It's long overdue because we haven't been able to give JB enough time to actually work on it. So it's not overdue in that sense.
Yeah, it's not that it's taken so long to finish it, it's that it took a long time to get the design there and to get started on it. But yeah.
All right. Well, ready to wrap up?
I think we are.
All right.
All right, so look, this has been great. It's been an hour plus of great questions from you folks, support obviously, which we greatly appreciate. My phone isn't ringing off the hook so far with requests for refunds, which is great. I'm sure that will change, unfortunately, but hopefully it won't, and that would be great if it doesn't, because we really do, appreciate your support. And again, this should be.
And if you don't believe in us now, we will take your money back in a few months when we prove you wrong.
But if you do that, remember you're
You're
gonna
not a founder anymore.
Yep, or you'll it costs us money, and that's one of the things to keep in mind. We've had a lot of people who backed and then change their mind and then come back, and each time it costs us money. So hopefully you won't do that. But we appreciate the support, and again, even if you leave, we still appreciate the support you did give us. This will be a short delay, and we will be better off for it in the long term. And one of the things that's really so important that Andrew said is the fact that this will get us to live quicker than we would have gone to live with the current system. And that's assuming we could have gone to live with the current system. The changes that we're making, the code that the guys are writing, will really make it easier for us to move forward. And as we all know, anyone here who has played an MMO, especially multiple MMOs, know that not only delays happen, but systems are refactored or rewritten all the time. And it doesn't matter whether, you're WoW and Blizzard, or if you're us, and Camelot Unchained. The fact that we are doing this the right way, and we're doing it now versus after launch, or we're doing it now versus at the end of Beta 4 or during Beta 4, I hope you'll keep in mind, and I hope you'll continue to support us for making these kind of correct decisions. Because this is a decision that will help us, but at the end of the day, it's also going to help you get the game that we promised, get it sooner, we hope, and get it with the kind of quality that you will hopefully come to expect, not only from this game, but future games we do in the studio.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in one of the interviews we did. Before City State, I was at Bethesda working on Skyrim. The amount of stuff that was iterated on that game, all you saw was the game that ships. You saw the part that shipped, and there were some, loop back, go down another path on a number of systems that ended up being very, very cool. You're seeing the sausage get made here, and there's some people like, I've been eating these tasty sausages all my life, and then someone shows them the sausage factory, and they say, oh God, all the grinders, that's horrible. But, it's how it gets made.
And that's important. I mean, because when you look at a studio, especially as Andrew has cited, Skyrim and Bethesda, where you have some absolutely brilliant people over there, a guy like Todd Howard, I think, is one of the best in the business.
He's very good at making the call on, no, take that back and do it better.
Exactly.
I'll tell you that.
Exactly. And that's the sort of thing that he does and other greats in this industry do as well. And as Andrew said, the difference is you're seeing that. And if we hadn't been a Kickstarter game, if we hadn't been public with the game already, you would have never seen this kind of change. And we're hoping, and certainly we're asking for support when we're doing the things that the great studios and some of the great leadership, do in this industry, does in this industry. And we're making this call. We're making it for all the right reasons. We're making it the right way, which is in front of you now and in the future. So, again, and for always, we thank you for your support. We appreciate it now and will always appreciate it for this game and hopefully future games as well. So, again, we thank you very much. And as you can imagine, I'm going to head right over to the forums and to MOP, and I'll be there chatting with you folks.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
I'm gonna go work on some ability code.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for the support, everybody. Bye bye.